All right, buckle up, because today we're taking a deep dive into a place that pushes the boundaries of imagination, the Hilbert Hotel.
But not the kind with room service and fluffy bathrobes.
Definitely not. Think less luxury getaway, more like a thought experiment come to life, a hotel with infinite rooms, which, presents some interesting challenges when it comes to, well, everything.
And it's precisely those challenges that make it the perfect setting for today's deep dive.
You've presented us with, let's be honest, a pretty wild scenario. Imagine a conference at this impossible hotel, but the guest list. It's incredible. Einstein, Marie Curie, Carl Jung, Sigmund Freud, just to name a few.
A meeting of some of the most brilliant minds across scientific and psychological disciplines.
All drawn together by a single powerful word, energy.
And that's what we're delving into today, using your notes and excerpts from this fictional conference.
All right, so we're going to unpack what these legendary figures might have said about energy. In all its forms, no less.
From the atom to the psyche, we'll be looking for common threads, unexpected connections. It should get interesting.
I'm already picking up what you're putting down. So, for our listeners, picture the scene. We're in the Hilbert Hotel, infinite hallways, buzzing with conversation. Let's start with, say, Carl Jung.
Ready to delve into the collective unconscious, those potent archetypes bubbling beneath the surface.
And I bet right beside him, probably arguing every step of the way, is Sigmund Freud.
With his own ideas about what drives human behavior, all that raw, instinctual energy, the
libido. Oh, and we can't forget Sabine Spielrein. She had this fascinating perspective on energy as this cyclical force, a dance between creation and destruction. She definitely shake things up between those two.
A fascinating trio to kickstart our thought experiment. But we're just getting started.
Right. I mean, we've got Marie Curie, the pioneer of radioactivity, talk about high-energy individuals. And then there's Einstein.
Yeah.
I mean, his most famous equation, E=mc², it practically is energy.
His very presence suggests we'll be exploring the fabric of reality itself, the interplay of matter, energy, maybe even consciousness.
Chills. Literal chills.
Yeah.
And to round things out, we have Wolfgang Pauli, the physicist who gave us the exclusion principle.
A concept that might just help explain how all these brilliant minds, each a universe unto themselves, can coexist in this infinite space.
Okay, so we've got the heavy hitters. But then you added two more names to the mix, Jean Desire and Sissy Spacefear. Now, they're intrigued.
Their presence tells us this deep dive isn't just theoretical. It's going to get personal. We'll be exploring time, space, and even our deepest fears.
So we're talking equations, A and D. What it feels like to experience this energy coursing through our lives, anxieties, maybe even our dreams. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, let's take a step back. What exactly is this Hilbert Hotel, and why is it the perfect setting for this mind-bending gathering?
An excellent question, and one that deserves its own exploration. Let's take a quick break, and then we'll unpack the mind-boggling concept of the Hilbert Hotel.
And we're back, ready to unpack this vast, almost intimidating concept, energy. We've gathered some serious brain power at this hypothetical conference in the infinite Hilbert Hotel. And I don't know about you, but I'm ready to eavesdrop on their conversations.
Remember, the setting here is key. Because we're in the Hilbert Hotel, a place with infinite rooms, we're not limited by physical space.
Right, so it's like we can have Jung and Freud going at it in one room, while Einstein's got a whole other room to himself, scribbling equations on a chalkboard.
Precisely. The possibilities are as limitless as the hotel itself.
And yet, even with infinite space, I bet the air would be crackling with energy, especially with Jung and Freud in the mix. Didn't they have different ideas about what fuels the human psyche?
To say the least, Jung, with his concept of archetypes, would likely argue that our energy is most potent when we tap into this shared unconscious, these universal, primal patterns of energy.
So it's not just about our own individual experiences. It's more like we're all connected to some vast shared reservoir of what? Energy.
Exactly. Think about the recurring motifs in art, in myths, even in dreams. Across cultures, across time periods. Jung would say those archetypes, like the hero's journey, the wise old man, they carry energy.
And that energy, it influences us.
Our thoughts, our behaviors, even our interactions with one another, it's all connected.
Okay, but then we have Freud, who, if I'm remembering my Psych 101 correctly, might steer the conversation in a slightly more, shall we say, primal direction.
Freud would likely counter those grand universal archetypes with something much more, basic, the libido, that raw instinctual energy.
Right, our drive for survival, for pleasure, all those things that make us, human.
He'd likely argue that libido fuels our every action, every thought.
So we've got Jung talking about this vast interconnected web of archetypal energy, and Freud's over there like, nope, it's all about that base drive.
In a nutshell, yes. Though I imagine Freud would use slightly more eloquent phrasing.
I have to admit, I'm leaning a bit toward Jung on this one. Those archetypes, I don't know, they just feel more, relatable somehow.
And that feeling of resonance, that sense of familiarity, that's precisely what Jung might point to as evidence of the energy they hold. But before we dismiss Freud entirely, consider how those primal drives, those basic urges, can also be incredibly potent sources of creative energy.
I hadn't thought of it that way.
That desire for connection, for expression, for creation, that's energy too.
Okay, I see what you mean. It's like two sides of the same coin, I guess.
And this is where I think Sabine Spielrein would jump into the conversation. You see, her work emphasized the cyclical nature of energy, this constant interplay between creation and destruction.
All right, break that down for me. What exactly do we mean by cyclical energy?
Think of it this way. You have a thought, a burst of creative energy. That thought might lead you to, build something, create something. But inherent in that creation is the possibility of its destruction. And that destruction might lead to another wave of creation, and so on.
So even destruction, it has its own energy. I mean, it takes energy to tear something down, right?
Precisely. And within that destruction, the potential for something new to emerge. Think about the Big Bang, this ultimate act of creation born from, some might say a previous universe's destruction.
Whoa, okay. We went big picture really fast.
But the same principle applies on a smaller scale, too. Spielrein believed that our psychic energy also goes through these cycles of expansion and contraction, creation and destruction, just like the universe itself.
Wow, so we're connecting the therapist's couch to the cosmos now.
And if we're going to talk about cycles of creation and destruction, we have to mention entropy, don't we? That whole idea that the universe tends towards disorder.
Oh, right. Entropy. Isn't that like kind of a downer, though?
Yeah.
Everything just descends into chaos.
Not necessarily. Entropy is a fundamental law of physics, but it doesn't just mean things fall apart. It also allows for new forms of order to emerge from that chaos. Think about it like this. You clean your house, you create order.
Okay, so far so good.
But over time, what happens? Dishes pile up, laundry needs folding, things get a bit, chaotic.
Right. You're speaking my language. But I still don't see how that's a good thing.
Because that state of disorder, it can also be a catalyst for change, for growth. Maybe you reorganize, rethink your entire system, and suddenly you have a new form of order, one that's even better than before.
Okay, that makes me feel a little better about the inevitable entropy of my apartment.
And isn't that kind of like the creative process itself? Letting go of old ideas, allowing for a little chaos so something fresh and exciting can emerge. It all ties back to Spielrein's concept of destruction before creation.
Mind officially blown. But we're not done yet, are we? We still have to talk about Jean Desire and his, shall we say, unique perspective on time.
Ah, yes, Jean Desire. He would remind us that time itself is a forming energy, constantly shaping our destinies, our memories. It's not just a linear progression, but a dynamic force, influencing how we experience the world.
Right. And this is where Einstein and his theory of relativity might have a thing or two to add to the conversation.
Precisely. Einstein showed us that time isn't this rigid, unchanging thing as we often perceive it. It's relative, dependent on factors like motion and gravity.
Hold on. Are you saying that our experience of time, how fast or slow it seems, could actually be influenced by energy?
It's a fascinating idea to consider, isn't it? What if our internal state, our energy levels, even our emotional state, could actually affect how we perceive time itself?
I mean, we've all had those moments where we're so engrossed in something, time just flies by.
Right? Exactly. Or the opposite, when you're anxious or bored, every second feels like an eternity.
It's like our internal battery is running low, so time slows down to a crawl.
Precisely. Perhaps Jean Desire, with his perspective on time as this fluid, subjective experience, could offer some insight into those variations. He might suggest that our personal energy, our anxieties, our passions, they all contribute to our experience of time itself.
Okay, my brain is officially starting to hurt in the best way possible. We've got the psyche, the cosmos, and now the very fabric of time being woven into this conversation about energy.
And believe it or not, we've only just scratched the surface. We still need to explore how this energy connects us, not just through time, but through space as well. And for that, we need to bring in another brilliant mind, Hypatia.
Hypatia, the ancient philosopher. Okay, now you're really taking us back.
Hypatia saw the cosmos as this interconnected web of thought and energy, an idea that might hold the key to understanding how our individual energies contribute to something much greater than ourselves.
Okay, you've piqued my curiosity. Lead the way. I'm ready to delve deeper. And we're back, still exploring this idea of energy at well, let's face it, the very concept of the Hilbert Hotel.
A fitting location, really, given the boundless nature of what we're discussing. We're picking up with Hypatia, a philosopher who saw the universe as this interconnected web of thought and energy.
Right, Hypatia. Ancient philosopher, big ideas. Give me the crash course, because, to be honest, philosophy is not exactly my strong suit.
Imagine this, Hypatia, gazing at the night sky, but she's not just seeing stars, she's seeing interconnected points of light and energy.
Okay, I'm with you so far.
She believed that thought itself, the act of thinking, was a form of energy, and that this thought energy, it could travel across the universe.
Hold on, you're saying she believed that what we think in our heads, it could actually impact the world outside our heads.
That's the idea. She envisioned this universal consciousness, a web where every individual mind contributes to and is influenced by this larger energy field.
You know, it almost sounds like, and hear me out on this, a less spooky version of telepathy.
There are some intriguing parallels, yes. In fact, some modern concepts like the observer effect in quantum physics kind of hint at this interconnectedness.
Right, the observer effect, I've heard of that, but honestly, I'm a little fuzzy on the details.
In simple terms, it suggests that the act of observing a system, even on a subatomic level, can actually influence its outcome.
So, just by thinking about something, we might be changing it on some tiny quantum level.
It challenges our traditional understanding of cause and effect, for sure. But it raises the question, what if our thoughts, our emotions, even our intentions, they all emit a subtle form of energy that interacts with the world around us?
Okay, if we're going down that rabbit hole, we have to loop Einstein back into this conversation. I mean, the guy was obsessed with connecting seemingly disparate ideas.
Exactly. Unifying theories, that was Einstein's jam. And this connection between thought, energy, and the very fabric of reality, he'd eat that up.
He'd probably whip out his trusty chalkboard, start scribbling equations like nobody's business.
Well, your notes, did he mention he might have entertained the idea of applying his famous equation, EMC, to connect matter, energy, and even consciousness.
Wait, so we're not just talking physics anymore. We're talking about the energy of our thoughts, our emotions. This is getting deep, even for the Hilbert Hotel.
And yet, we can't forget about the other brilliant minds at our hypothetical conference, each with their own piece of the energy puzzle, like Marie Curie, who showed us the dual nature of this force, its potential for both creation and destruction.
Right, her work with radioactivity, that's like the ultimate example, isn't it? Energy that can power entire cities, but also, level them in an instant.
It's a powerful reminder that energy, in all its forms, demands respect. It's a force to be understood, harnessed carefully.
And where does Wolfgang Pauli, with his exclusion principle, fit into this whole energy equation? I'll admit, that one's always been a bit over my head.
Imagine it this way. You know how every snowflake is unique, no two exactly alike?
Okay, I can picture that.
Pauli's principle, it's kind of like that, but for consciousness. He said that no two identical particles can occupy the same quantum state. It's like each individual psyche, each mind, each consciousness, it occupies its own unique energy state in this vast universe of minds.
So instead of competing for energy, we all contribute to this incredible tapestry of thoughts, experiences.
Precisely. Our individual energies, whether we're talking anxieties, passions, even our darkest fears, it all adds to this beautiful, messy, utterly unique collective consciousness. We're all part of something much grander than ourselves, all interconnected by this unseen web of energy.
I got to hand it to you. This deep dive has been, a lot to process. We started with one word, energy, and somehow we ended up exploring the universe, consciousness, the very fabric of reality.
And isn't that the beauty of it? This exploration of energy, it's really an exploration of ourselves, of our place in the grand scheme of things.
It makes you think, doesn't it? If we're all connected by this invisible web of energy, what kind of energy are we putting out there? How do our thoughts, our emotions, our actions ripple through this interconnected system?
Those are questions worth pondering, for sure. And perhaps by asking them, by exploring these ideas, we tap into a deeper understanding of not just the universe, but ourselves.
I don't know about you, but I'm feeling energized, ready to keep asking those big questions. And on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive into the multifaceted world of energy. Thank you for joining us, and until next time, keep exploring.